A knife found its mark in the dark, and the most powerful man on earth had seconds to decide who he'd become. Rome 182 ad. The blade came fast. I've read the palace logs myself. The attendants heard nothing at first, just a man's breath catching. Marcus Aurelius, the Stoic emperor, felt the steel enter his chest. His assassin stood close enough to see the emperor's eyes, close enough to see him choose. But we need to rewind. Need to understand the man inside the purple before we understand what happened next. Marcus Aurelius wasn't born for the throne. He was born into a world of chaos, plague sweeping through the empire, Germanic tribes pressing at the borders, Rome eating itself from within. His predecessor, Antoninus Pius, died in 161. Marcus inherited an empire on fire. He had a choice then too. He could have ruled like the emperors before him, iron fist, fear, suspicion. Instead, he picked up Epictetus, read Zeno, studied the Stoics, and he made a bet. That virtue, real, grinding virtue, could actually govern an empire, that a man could be powerful and still be good. It sounds naive now. It sounded naive then. The weight of that throne was immense. Every decision rippled through millions of lives. Soldiers died on his word. Taxes he set determined whether farmers ate. The Senate circled him constantly, hungry for power. Senators he'd trusted turned on him. Generals questioned his authority. And through it all, Marcus wrote. Late into the night, by lamplight, he'd write to himself. These writings, his asterisk meditations asterisk, they're not grand philosophy. They're a man talking himself off the ledge. You have power, he'd write. But it doesn't make you better. It just makes you more responsible. He knew something most rulers never grasp, that absolute power doesn't corrupt because it's absolute. It corrupts because we use it to avoid the one thing that's actually hard, becoming a better person. For 20 years he held the line. He fought the Parthians. He fought the Marcomanni. He held Rome together while everything tried to pull it apart. And the entire time he was fighting something harder, the temptation to be the man the throne wanted him to be ruthless, to be suspicious, to use his power the way power demands to be used. Then came the year everything cracked. His son Commodus was growing up. The empire was turning against Marcus, or so his advisors whispered. There were rumors of plots, a senator here, a general there. The palace became a place of shadows. Trust evaporated like morning dew. And in that darkness, someone decided the emperor had to die. The assassin's name was Avidius Cassius, a general Marcus had trusted, a man the emperor had promoted, relied on, even loved in his way. Cassius had heard the rumors too, heard that Marcus was dying, heard that the throne would fall to Commodus, a young man with none of his father's discipline, and Cassius made a calculation. If Marcus died, perhaps he could save Rome. That's the thing about virtue that nobody tells you. It's not tested when life's easy. It's tested when the person trying to kill you has a reason. When they're not a monster, they're someone you believed in. Someone whose motives you can almost understand. That's when you learn who you actually are. The blade came, and Marcus felt it. Not just the pain, the shock of it. The realization that the man he'd trusted had crossed that line. In that moment, most men would rage, would call for torture, would make an example, would let fear and anger write the next chapter. Marcus didn't. What he did instead was almost impossible to understand. He asked for Cassius to be brought before him, not to be executed immediately, not to be tortured for information, but to be heard, to be understood. He wanted to know why, not for revenge, but because a Stoic emperor doesn't react, he responds. And responding means understanding. Cassius spoke. He explained his fear, his belief that Rome needed him, that he'd acted from duty, not ambition, that he'd been trying to save the empire. And Marcus, bleeding, betrayed, with every reason to destroy this man, listened. Actually listened. Not to find justification for cruelty, but to understand the human being in front of him. Then Marcus did something the histories almost whisper about. He forgave him. Not weakly, not because he was weak, but because he'd realized something that most people never do, that revenge is just another form of being controlled, that the man who can hurt you still owns you if you let rage be your response. I've read the accounts. Some historians say Cassius died by his own hand afterward, unable to live with that mercy. Others say Marcus exiled him. The details blur, but what doesn't blur is the principle. Marcus had been tested not by success, but by betrayal. And he chose virtue when virtue was the hardest thing he could possibly choose. This is what the Stoics understood that we've mostly forgotten. Power isn't about what you can do to others. It's about what you can do to yourself. Marcus had the absolute power to destroy Cassius. Instead, he used his power to choose who he wanted to be. That's not weakness. That's the hardest strength there is. The weight of the throne never got lighter. The empire still demanded blood. The Senate still circled. But Marcus had learned something that changed everything. That the throne doesn't own you. That betrayal doesn't dictate your response. That virtue isn't tested when it's convenient, it's tested when it costs you something real. Most of us will never wear a crown, will never command legions or hold absolute power. But we all face versions of this test. Someone betrays us, someone cuts us, someone gives us every reason to respond with anger, with cruelty, with control. And in that moment, we get to choose, not what happens to them, but who we become. Marcus chose carefully. That choice is still teaching us today. Subscribe to explore more moments where ancient wisdom collides with the weight of real choice. Because the philosophy that mattered then still teaches us how to live now.